I have my dear sister Abigail also helping me moderate and run this panel today, so shout out to Abigail. Okay, so I think I've already introduced the topic a little bit, right, what we're going to get into today. And today, as I said, we're going to be discussing social anxiety. And I want to make a distinction between anxiety, social anxiety, shyness, introversion. So things that are oftentimes in the same spectrum or placed on the same things, but they can differ for slightly different reasons, right? So anybody know what anxiety is? Anybody who's either a professional or has experiences can define anxiety for us before we get into it? Don't be shy, guys. See,
I'll just pick people.
Go on, that's fine.
Make them interact. Oh, nah, thank you for looking at me. Social anxiety, what do you think it is? There's no right or wrong answer.
Anxiety specifically.
Oh, anxiety specifically.
Well, we all have some sort of anxiety, but it's quite manageable. But just when you can't manage it and it becomes too much, then that's where it becomes a problem.
Okay, wonderful. So if I get what our dear sister Nana is saying, that we all struggle with some sort of anxiety, but the problem and the struggle to manage it and sometimes it taking over our lives in the ways that we want to sort of go about functioning daily is what becomes a problem. Thank you for that. That was great. Anybody else? We'll take one more.
We'll take one more?
Yep.
Should I just pick?
Anybody.
Elder. The word anxiety, how do you say anxiety in tree? Oh, Charlie. How do you say anxiety in tree? Does anyone know the tree for anxiety? I am shishia. Okay, Elder, I am shishia. I wasn't born in Ghana. So. Anybody? Anxiety? Oh, Nadia.
Feeling overly nervous, not being able to participate in activities, a feeling of overwhelmness that you are not able to control.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that definition as well. Pardon?
I think anxiety in trees, I am shishia, a stroke, I kind of ferry, like all combined.
So I think it's a great thing our sister Nana pointed out. In Chi, we don't have a direct word for anxiety. It's a combination of all of these things that we know is related, but sometimes we struggle to define it very specifically, right? And I think also in the context of social anxiety, as our dear sister defined for us, anxiety sometimes is a crippling fear or inability to interact, right? So you know maybe you have a desire to do something, but there's something in you, something that you feel in your stomach which is stopping you, right? So being able to actually perform certain things in your day-to-day life that you know you want to, all right? And that can sometimes become very overbearing and overpowering, right? And debilitating in certain instances. But social anxiety is anxiety which is crippling. You can say crippling, right? Social anxiety is specifically anxiety which is triggered by sort of fear of social interactions, especially large crowds, or places where you feel like you have to be very visible, very public, very seen, okay? And as a church community, although we all love each other, we all come to fellowship every week, we have to understand that church is also a very social place. There's a lot of participation sometimes in church. And sometimes church and activities related to church can really trigger people's social anxieties and how they deal with it, right? It can be things like a persistent fear of wanting to do anything church, sometimes being embarrassed when something that otherwise, wouldn't be that embarrassing happens, especially in church, because we're also scared of judgment sometimes from other people, especially in church, right? Which I think can be a huge component of how people feel anxiety. They feel sometimes judged or don't feel accepted when they are in church, or at least in the church community. So I think that's what we're going to touch on today. I won't go further into it. So what I'm going to do is cycle through a panelist with different questions, and I'll get them to share some of their experiences. So some of our panelists are people who have either previously experienced social anxiety, they've sort of dealt with it in their own way, or currently experiencing it, going through it. People who may not actually have social anxiety, but can understand or want to give their opinion on how it affects other people, especially when it comes to the context of the church. So for the panel, I'll start with our first question. So I'm going to ask, I think I'll pick maybe 3 people. Feel free to volunteer or I'll pick. People who think they sort of struggle a little more with social anxiety, or at least have experienced it in the past to begin with. to tell me from their perspective, right, what social anxiety feels like to you specifically. I think we sort of done some broad definitions, but it can be very personal, right? And also exactly how it manifests itself in a church setting. So what things about being in church or being around church can really sort of trigger your social anxiety. So if anybody wants to start, or I'll start picking.
So in a church setting, we assume that obia bitmi aye bibia. We assume that everyone can come up here and take part in a program. We assume everyone can do this because we're in a church. But we shouldn't have that assumption. We should all get to know our strengths and what people can do. Maybe Auntie Charity can sing, Auntie Phyllis can pray. But if you force one of us to do the other thing, it might cause, I think someone said, being overwhelmed. All the time, the person is processing how I'm going to do this thing, how I'm going to do this thing. By the time it's taking over them and they're not able to perform like they want to. And it's fear of being judged or being embarrassed.
Yeah.
And so you feel, I think, maybe for what is a worship committee, for instance, when we call someone to come and do something, and they say to you,
Until let me stop it. I want your specific experience, right?
Okay.
Make it specific to you.
Specific to me?
Yes.
Oh, I suppose sometimes if I'm asked to go and do a big presentation, maybe at work, no matter how much you prepare, you still feel a little bit, because obviously you don't want to embarrass yourself and you don't want to be judged. So personally, I think that's the only bit I feel a little bit. But I think when I start talking, I'm okay. Yeah.
So for you, it's more so before you start performing whatever duty you have to, that's when you feel a little bit more anxious. But
Exactly.
once you get into the flow of things, a little bit easier for you.
Yes.
Okay, that's wonderful. Okay.
Thank you.
Let me have someone else on the panel, please. Solis, thank you.
For me, if I give an actual example, singing, for example, for me, another aspect I think we haven't even mentioned about social anxiety is the overthinking aspect. So you are overwhelmed and you're constantly thinking about, for example, going on the stage and performing. And I feel like that is something, like Auntie mentioned, in the church setting that everyone is like expected to be comfortable doing. But for those who suffer with anxiety and social anxiety, within the church setting, things like that can be more overwhelming and kind of stressful than people realize.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. So I think what you're saying there, if I'm correct, is that sometimes even something you've done before in church, right? The experience of overthinking every single time that you have to do it can in itself be a burden. So oftentimes perhaps you might spring certain things on people that we think, they're okay to just go up and do it, etc. But, we have to be mindful as a church of how people may be feeling and how it will affect them, especially if people might have anxiety otherwise. That's a great contribution. Thank you. Nana?
I think adding on to what Solis said, speaking from personal experience, every time that I felt anxious doing something in front of church, it manifests physically for me. So heart palpitations, sweaty palms, I feel like I'm physically, something bad is gonna happen. I don't get it so much, so no, please, the guys, don't worry, it's fine. But when I was younger, especially, a lot of it would manifest physically, to the point where a lot of times, when I'd finish singing, I'd have to go and excuse myself to physically calm down before I can come back to my seat, if that makes sense. So for me, yeah, that's where it manifested.
No, I totally understand that. Thank you for sharing that. So I think a key point Nana touched on is the physical manifestations of how we feel, right? So when we look at anxiety and sometimes... Sorry, Bumcho, if we can keep the noise upstairs a little bit lower for us, please. Thank you. Thank you. Going back to what Nana was saying, Nana made a great point about the physical manifestation of sometimes how you feel, especially when you're anxious, right? I think a key point that I want to point out is that emotions, especially anxiety, is a physiological reaction. So it's not just mental, but your body actually experiences and has signs of what you're going through. So as Nana mentioned, sometimes you having heart palpitations, sweating profusely, these are things that make you physically very uncomfortable, all right? And even though you haven't done anything that, might be embarrassing, the physical manifestations of you realizing that you're feeling, very anxious, very sweaty, very, unsettled, might in itself be something that continues to further exacerbate, how you're feeling. So it probably doesn't help sometimes if someone was to point it out or, not be mindful of how physically these things might manifest. So I think that's a great contribution there. Wonderful, thank you. We move on to the next question, all right? And one thing I think I want to expand on was what Auntie Phyllis was saying. So Auntie Phyllis mentioned that once, for her, she starts performing whatever duty is that she's performing, whether giving a presentation, prayer. No, Auntie Phyllis and the singer band, they sing. So when she's singing, she doesn't feel as anxious, all right? And I think that's an important distinction to sometimes make, right? Oftentimes, for some people, they feel very much so anxious or nervous before they go into that. And I think that's a sign of maybe comfortability, or at least not being so aware of, what's going on. I think the question I want to ask is that what things, for some of our panelists, lessen that feeling of social anxiety when they are in church? So what things have they noticed might contribute to actually helping them be able to get over those physical manifestations as well as mental sort of effects of social anxiety, if anybody wants to contribute on that point?
Sometimes it can be preparation, and then sometimes knowing yourself and what you can take on.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's something where absolutely you feel, and it's little steps sometimes, but where you feel not this time, if you can, it's not every time that maybe in a work situation you can say I won't do it. But if there are big directors then you feel you can't, then maybe you should work on yourself, then put yourself in that situation. But I think once you're prepared, maybe it helps.
Okay. So I like what Auntie Phyllis said about preparation. I think also Sola's mentioned a good point about sometimes overthinking, right? So if you know you have something coming up, especially in church, and you start overthinking, sometimes that can actually get in your way of your preparation, okay? So even though, someone said, oh, they're giving you a week and it's enough time for you, sometimes the fact that you're thinking about every single thing that could go wrong, every time where you could potentially embarrass yourself, right, could be something that actually stunts your ability to actually get started and make headway as your preparation, and you find yourself maybe rushing last minute to get everything done. And that in itself sometimes can contribute to feelings of feeling more anxious, especially once, you come to sort of do that. So I think it's a really important point about thinking about giving people enough time to prepare for anything that we give them to do, especially in church. I think as some of the singers mentioned, sometimes, they can be sprung on. Even me today, I was, grabbing people to come and help me with the praise team, right? And as much as to us that may look like, something normal and something very routine, right? For them, the lack of preparation may actually be something that, doesn't really help, especially when they haven't really thought about it or they didn't expect to be able to do something. I'm hearing a lot of people agreeing. Anybody want to add a point from the congregation before we move on? Yeah?
Hello, hi, my name is Larissa. Hi. Hi, everyone. Just to add on to what Emmanuel is saying, we also need to take into considerations those we think are confident, because there is still some social anxiety there. Just because I know we're all singers here, so just because we go up there and we sing every time we do the praise and worship and stuff at church, yeah, we're good at it because we're having fun, but that doesn't mean always we're ready to go and we're just up. So it makes it a bit difficult to be constantly, you see us as confident, but the anxiety is always still there. We just find a way to either push it down, or because you're enjoying yourself with your friends, it goes away and you forget. But I want us to still take into consideration the ones we think are confident as well.
I just want to add to Larissa's one as well. I think different environments also bring different things, right? So for me, I'll speak for me, I feel safe here. So everybody here knows me, I'm confident and do whatever, I'm bubbly, Rarely will you see me that way outside. So if you know me at work, or if you know me in an environment where I don't really know people, when I'm a baby, I won't really talk. But for a lot of people, that'll be, oh, but Nana's like this, and Nana, do you know what I mean? So I think that the environment makes a huge difference, right? If I go somewhere, again, I'll speak for myself, and I feel comfortable around the people that I'm with, and I feel safe, you'll get my personality. Otherwise, you will think that maybe I'm not a nice person because I won't talk to you, So I think environment helps massively. But yeah, stop pulling us up without giving us advance notice, please and thanks.
I think Ellie Kim has something to say there.
Just to add on, I have social anxiety, But because I'm loud in my comfortable space, my friends, and even they can attest, they think I am not shy and I don't have social anxiety, but I do. And yeah, just to add on, that sometimes just because someone is loud or very comfortable around you doesn't mean the person doesn't have social anxiety.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for sharing.
So I think just to add on to what Ellie Kim was saying before the next person, right? I think it's really important sometimes to know people, right? And as a church family, it's our duty to form those relationships where we get to know the people that we're around with, that we're in fellowship with, right? What you might know about someone who's your close friend, right? And you experience someone else who isn't maybe as close to them or doesn't have the same rapport, may not have the same ability to share the same, type of relationship, right? So I think it's really important. I think Auntie Phyllis mentioned something about people knowing themselves are right. So if someone tells you, oh, maybe this one is too much for today, or maybe next week, oftentimes we can think the person's being lazy or trying to get out or something, right? But I think it's really important to understand the people we're actually dealing with and the personnel, and have sort of the relationships and the right rapport that we'll be able to actually let them talk to us and open up to us enough that they can share how they're really feeling, right? And I think that's really important to also listen to people when they do speak about how they actually feel, rather than us trying to project, what we think would be better for them or otherwise, right? So I think, thank you, Ellie, for that contribution. That was
To add to that, actually, I feel like in this community or in such an environment, because people don't really understand social anxiety, it's misconstrued and stigmatized as well. So people may assume it may be not due to you being shy or you due to being antisocial or rude. It kind of further worsens the person's social anxiety when it's not met with understanding. So that's something I wanted to point out as well.
I think Mickey had a contribution there, but Solid, you can elaborate if you can whilst Mickey is about to start. I think someone asked.
I feel like, for example, like when you're asked to do something like Larissa was saying, like or singing, for example, it's like your refusal is seen to be like, you should be ready. You're a singer. Why aren't you ready? This is something you're supposed to be. And then there's another thing of guilt tripping where as well, like, it's like you're being hard of hearing, you're being difficult. No one considers that. It's actually quite nerve-wracking to be up there. And that whole further shame of, God has blessed you. You should be up there. You have a talent. It's your duty to share. I'm fully aware of that. And that also brings shame when instead of, someone asking me, why is it that you don't like being up there? Or why is it so difficult that, for you to perform? So that's what I mean. It's not met with understanding. It's met with criticism. So that's what I mean.
Can I add something to that before, Mickey? So I wanted to understand how we know you really feel that way, or whether you just don't want to do it. Because it's not here. Oh, sorry. And I was saying, we want to understand whether, because of this subject we're talking about, instant ipakwanim pesa obege, and now said they just do not want to. When you work with youth and young adults, sometimes we get the idea that you just don't want to come up there and perform. So how do we then, going forward as a church, as we're learning, how do we understand? You may not want to share with us, that's fine, or share with the person asking, but how do we know, social anxiety and you just don't want to do it? Because the other thing is, you can say, we see certain people, same people being used. So how do we understand to make sure we're also treading carefully and working with everybody?
I think, sorry, to add on what you just said, is what Emmanuel said, is trying to get to know the person, trying to have a relationship with them. Because I think we have this stigma where if a young adult or a youth does want to do something, go and say, which understands that social anxiety can also be induced by environment. So there could be some times you're comfortable, as Larry said, you could be comfortable singing, and one day you come into church, you don't feel like you want to sing, you feel overwhelmed with everything. We shouldn't expect that every day you're doing something, you should be able to do it. I know a student that is presenting something in assembly. He's got social anxiety, but he was comfortable in that setting. As soon as someone else walked into that assembly, they shut down completely because that was a trigger for them. So everyone has different triggers. We need to be able to understand and also be receptive that you might ask somebody, they might not be ready to share. That's all part of symptoms. So if it asks me, I didn't know I'm going to when you're ready, you need to be able to receive that and be like, that's fine. Not to probe and probe and probe, because the more you probe and probe and probe, that triggers another physical reaction, which might cause a person to shut down completely. You just have to be very receptive and be understanding and waiting for the right opportunity to ask certain questions, not insist that you give me an answer why you're not doing this. If they say they're not ready, they're not ready. Give them that space. When you're ready, they'll have that conversation with you.
Thank you for that contribution. I think a key point that Mickey mentions is about the rapport and the relationship you have with that person, right? So if you know what someone's tendencies are like, right, perhaps you can be pushy in a way which doesn't feel like you're being overbearing, right? So I think I'll share a scripture which I'm actually going to touch on later, but Mickey mentioned a good point. So if we look at Galatians 6, verse 2, right? It says, carry one another's burdens. In this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ, all right? So I think it's really important for us to look out for our dear brothers and sisters, right? The things that we know that they may be going through, the things that we know that they may be struggling with, so that we can be mindful of things in a way where they may not be able to actually vocalize it or voice it, or where we do have that relationship with them, we can then go ahead and perhaps, speak to them in a way where they can be a bit more understanding, where they can actually share with us how they're really feeling, as opposed to maybe they're coming off like they don't want to do something in church in particular. So I think that's a key scripture that I want us to really think about and keep in mind as well, that we'll touch on a little bit later. But I also want to come back to the rest of the panelists. I think we haven't heard from some of our panelists, right? So if any of our panelists want to share, if they feel like they've struggled with social anxiety, but they found ways in which to manage it, or what techniques that they currently use, or they've been able to pick up that help them be able to perform, even though they have struggled or struggle with social anxiety. So we'll start maybe with our sister Stephanie, and then I think we haven't heard from our brother Nana Jima as well, so we'll come to Nana as well. Yeah.
I dealt with it when there was a period of time when I was really ill, and it affected my mobility. So I couldn't really go anywhere. I was stuck in the house. I became a recluse, basically. And the only time I would really go is when I would be having physiotherapy. Then when I would go out, people would start looking at me, feeling sorry for me, like, me yeah, mobile be, like, they'll be looking at you like, oh, they'll be looking at you as if, like, there's something wrong with you, but in your head, you're trying to feel normal again. And I remember seeing somebody that I knew, and they saw that I was ill, and they said, oh, why you BB? That's the reason why you are like this, And at one point, I just felt like I don't want to go anywhere again. I just want to stay at home. So then I was speaking to one of my friends, and she said, whenever I came to the hospital, I didn't want you to feel as if there's something wrong with you. I wanted to treat you normally, because I don't want that thing to overtake you and make you feel as if you are less than, but you're not less than. So stop feeling sorry for yourself, and start acting like everything is going to be okay. And she also told me that you say that you're a Christian, but you're not acting like one because you're feeling sorry for yourself. So I said to her, okay, fine, I'm going to take your advice. So I just told myself that if you want to go out and do something, just do it. And don't feel sorry for yourself. My mom always used to say to me, and when she used to say that to me, I just used to think, oh, she's just talking again. But as I've grown older, I've realized she's right. So now, I don't allow things to get to me so much. And I just say to myself that, if it doesn't work the first time, let me try again, and it's going to be okay. And over time, that has also helped me. I think being a parent as well, in certain settings, you get judged a lot, from social anxiety to there's some parents that look at you like, oh, it looks as if untumi shewuba, or it looks as if say untumi nyashe. But with that as well, I just said to myself, every parent is unique in their own way. So you do your best, and God will do the rest. So I've just that's the things that I've been motivating myself and been telling myself. Because sometimes we also, in work environments, okay, before, we're mostly surrounded by like white people. But we also have to show them that we're not going to allow like our social anxiety to get to us in that way, because if we do that, we're setting ourselves back and we're not allowing ourselves to flourish and grow. So that's very, very important as well. So it's just manifestations, obviously using scripture as well. That has really, really helped me, because I felt as if I didn't do those things, I wouldn't be able to achieve some of the things that I have achieved now, or I'll just be stuck in the same place. And the world is moving fast, so you also need to remember, sir, you also need to speed ahead. And I also don't allow social media to get to me as well, because when you look at social media, you feel as if you're way, way behind, but people don't show you the real things that are happening in their lives. They only show you the good parts. So you take the good, you take the bad, and you use that to motivate you to move forward as well. Yeah.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, I think either Sean or our brother Nanajima, you guys can go. Nanajima, yeah? Okay.
So, you know, I feel like social anxiety it lives with us. It's everywhere. No matter how confident you are, one way or the other, there is some kind of anxiety whenever you're doing something. So we were talking about singing. So think about it, just like my colleagues were saying, we always do sing. Maybe the first time you held the mic to sing, be like, okay, so when it goes wrong, what's going to happen? Nobody's going to laugh. As, for instance, in church, I feel like nobody's going to laugh at you. Maybe you feel like, oh, it didn't go or something like that. But think about this way. If you are going to the ranges the second day for shooting, and this is the first time you are holding a gun, it's not like church that if it goes wrong, nobody's going to laugh at you or something like that. You know, military, if it goes wrong, you're gonna get punished, or maybe you go back whilst your colleagues proceed forward. So that night, it's either you can't sleep, or maybe you call your father or your mother, or maybe somebody close to you, try to explain, or maybe tell the person what's going on the next day. So think about it that way. But I feel like how you're going to go about it is in different ways. First of all, even if it goes wrong, you need to keep trying. The fact that social anxiety, the anxiety thing is there, doesn't mean that it's going to shut you. Like, for me, personal experience, I don't give up. So with anxiety, when it's set in something like this and it goes wrong or something, whatever the consequences is, it's either you talk to somebody, an elderly person, to calm you down, maybe try and do it again, this time around, in a way that you'll be more careful, or I don't know. But yeah, so with we the young people, when we experience anxiety, hello? When we experience anxiety, it's a challenge, a self-challenge, like a challenge to you yourself. You just have to find a way to overcome it, or maybe consult somebody who can tell you more about it, or maybe tell you something that you're going to do. So for instance, for singing, if you do and you feel like, oh, what's going to happen? You do it again. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to kill you for that. So yeah, that's what I've got to say.
No, wonderful, thank you so much. I think, Sean, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, just to answer your question that you asked about coping mechanisms, I think, me personally speaking, I don't have any coping mechanisms. I think for me it's just easy to deflect. If someone asks me to come to the front, I'll just say no. Now that I work, it's easy to say that I'm working. It's easy to say that I'm working. But yeah, for me, easy, I'll just deflect, because
impacts on how much social anxiety they will have going out into the world. For example, if a child does something in where they one year say, that's how you're always communicating with them. If they go out into the world and someone says do something, all they have in their mind is this auntie that said, oh, mantuni ye, this auntie that said I didn't do this well. You can say things in a good way with reproach. Like, I think the way in which we're conveying a lot of the information really impacts the confidence of the younger people, which also then impacts the amount of social anxiety they have. I think if we build people up and we keep building their confidence, they're better equipped to fight against social anxiety, because they've always heard that even if they don't do something well, they can do it better. Like, every time maybe they've sang and they haven't sang well, or they've done something and they haven't done it well, someone has come up to them and said, you know, you could, like, you did well done for trying, but next time maybe let's do it like this instead of, oh, where do you want ye? Like, that kind of conversation really impacts in, like, your self-confidence. So I think that if we take anything from this discussion, is that you may feel like the way you speak to people does not affect their confidence or their self-worth, but it really, really does. And every conversation you have with someone here is building someone up or breaking them down, especially the younger people. If you're the older ones, I feel like we're used to it now, so you can talk to us anywhere. And hi, sorry, almost see Davey, hi. So that's, thank you. And even that reaction shows that even it's affecting people who are even older. So the way we communicate with people in every circumstances, whatever they say, really impacts how they present in the outside world. We're building each other. My mom always says it's a hospital. We're fixing each other, we're helping each other. So the way we speak to each other, the way we communicate with each other is how we then present in the world. So let's all try to be as kind in every reproach that we give, to not break anyone down to a point that they're scared to go into the front and speak. They're scared because they know if they don't do well. We should build a community where even if people fail, they're not scared to fail. So that's my...
Wonderful, thank you so much. I think we have a few contributions from the audience. So we have Auntie Bridget, then Auntie Nana, and then Sasha at the back, and then we'll come back to the panel.
Yes, Gillian, just to go from your point, and then I'll make the points that I wanted to make. I mean, one thing I'll take from that is you can't control people. So how people act, what they say, I mean, everyone knows I can't sing, but I'll still go up there and sing.
Cool,
because there's one thing I took away from this preacher called Joyce Meyer. I used to listen to her a lot at my early years of parenting when I became a parent. And I was going through a transition. And she said, do it afraid. So if I know that I can't sing, I'll go out there, I'll pretend that I can sing, and I'll smile, and I'll get it done. Because you can't control people. Environment is another thing. When you know that you are surrounded by people who are supporting you, it makes it easier. But sometimes you are placed in circumstances, even if it's at work, and you're asked to do something. Again, like I said, do I feel the anxiety? Sometimes, but I won't show it. I'll say, okay, I'll do it. There's prayer, there's fasting. And one thing my head teacher does, she's nervous, she drinks water, and it eases it. So I'm not saying that some of us don't feel it. Some of us find ways of coping and suppressing it so that it doesn't get in the way of us progressing in life. So I think that it's finding that and coping. But yeah, do it afraid. Thank
you. I'm just about to echo what my sister has just said there. And when we were growing up, it was you had to go up and you do it. And maybe that wasn't a good thing, but it built us up. I remember at a very young age, you guys may not know it, the adults here would know Cultural Center. I would go up there, I must have been, 6, 7? And I will be doing... I will be given a script, so you had to learn it about smoking, why smoking was not good for you. And I did it twice, and I remember the second time that I did it, wow, cultural center was packed. I don't remember, I always say I don't remember a lot of things from my childhood, but I remember that time. And they took me up there. You had to do it. There, you know, no way you could say no. I know my son saying, you know, you deflect, no, I'm not going to do it. And you're allowed to sit down. That's how we were brought up. So my sister saying, do it afraid. The question when I raised my hand before she spoke was, how do we support for you guys to manage this? For me, doing that around that time and doing Pathfinder at Ashanti Newtown Church, you had to go and do it. I remember when I went back, our pictures are there. I was there with my big head and everybody saying, yeah, this is you. We were very much a part of the you know, Pathfinder. Growing up, you had to get involved. There was no way about it. And it's not diminishing the fact and your truth that you do have social anxiety, but how do we move forward? For me, doing that and doing those cultural center things, I feel built me up. I was then able to do presentations in school, presentations at uni, you know, and presentation in God's house. It doesn't mean maybe you see some of us like, oh, she can do it. She goes up there and she easily does it. I think Nana said it. It's not as easy as that. When you go and stand in front of God's people, it's the most scariest thing. But you have it in your head that you have a task to do. You have a job to do. So you pray for God's strength to be able to do it. So yes, you're owning your truth there that there is social anxiety. How do we help you? And I hear you saying, when you say no, we, in terms of we're asking, why don't you want to do it? Or how can we support? Maybe it's the way we do it because of how we've been brought up. You have to go and do it, so we're pushing that on you. But now we're learning, how can we support you? Because son, you can't keep deflecting. It's gonna build you up and it's gonna help you. Do I let or allow my son to keep deflecting because he has social anxiety, he can't do it? How can I support you? What coping mechanism? Is it about when you go and stand there, you're not looking at individuals, but you're looking to the back of the church? You know, that's one thing that works for some people. We can't, I'm going to say it wrong here. I was going to say we can't allow you to just keep sitting back because you have that and you can't do it. We are proud of you. We want you guys to achieve, and we want you guys to achieve in the house of the Lord as well. We're proud when you're getting your certificates, your degrees, I'm always boasting about my project managers, my pharmacists, my nurses, the lawyers in this church, the doctors. We also want you to grow here too. And so it's about saying, God, I'm here. There's a task to do. Grant me the strength to be able to do it. And then you do it. There are days that you don't feel well. I wouldn't feel well. I wouldn't be able to go up there. There are days that you wouldn't feel well to say yes. But I think generally, if we set our mind to the fact that there's a task to do, how are we going to do it well and how are we going to do it better? It's only by God's strength, and we pray to God to do that. I say social anxiety. We need to move forward. Why? But we're here to support.
Okay, so I wanted to also make a bit of a contribution or pull our minds back to this as well. Sometimes, I feel in the realm of everything, we need to give some credit to different personality types. Because I feel like not everybody is cut out to be in front there. You know, like, although we are encouraging everyone to try as much as possible, but I feel like there are different personality types to take in place. Because I have a friend, for example, she doesn't thrive in people, but one-on-one, she's just the sweetest person. So I feel one thing the church can also do is to somehow get to know us very well, because I might not be the one to stand in front of church to do something, but I might be very good at teaching maybe a class, kids or something. I mean, that's because I find it very comfortable. There are kids around, and then it makes me come out well than to be in front of the church. And I think another way to also help with that is the fact that even if it's not like normal church service being in front, like Wednesday prayers, they are Zoom. Because sometimes people feel overwhelmed when they stand in front of people. But if it is something to do with like technology, then it brings out the personalities in them. So in as much as we are encouraging everybody to try to be that social person, I think to an extent we need to give like credit to the different types or personality types as well, and then match it. So yeah.
Wonderful contribution, Sister Reggie. I think our sister mentioned something really key that I think we've been touching on and talking about, right? So knowing our personnel, knowing our people, and I think the scripture I shared, right, about bearing one another's burdens, right, it's really important for us to figure out, okay, cool. Sometimes we only come to, some young adults only when we want them to do something that benefits the church or the department that we lead, right? But have you thought about how they can also contribute in the ways that they shine, the ways that they have their strengths to the rest of the church? And also we can think about how to build things up, right? So I think someone mentioned that we're talking about sometimes your best looks very different in every given day, right? So your best today may not be your best tomorrow. It looks different from day to day, right? And I think being willing to do your best on that given day is what's important, right? And I think also Anthony touched on a point about asking people, how can we support them, right? How can we help them be able to do certain things that we feel like in the church will empower them to go further, right? I think that's a really key point about phrasing that conversation in a manner of support. So let me come back to Nana. I think we have a few points here, and then Misha at the front, and then anybody else who wants to add to that as well.
I think I've got a couple of things to say, but to address what Regina said, I 100% agree. But I think it goes back to us as individuals being emotionally intelligent, right? You might not be able to get to know every single person on the level where, oh, they're type A or they're type B or they're outgoing, they're not outgoing. If you're emotionally intelligent, you can judge basically by their moods, how they're reacting, how they're talking back to you. You can see, okay, maybe this is the best time to speak to this person. Okay, I can tell that something's not 100%. Maybe this is not the best time, if that makes sense. If you yourself are emotionally aware, you can apply that, or emotionally intelligent, you can apply that to every single person that comes around you. And then going back to Auntie Nana's question about how you can empower us to, be more confident, I think is a parental thing. Because as much as, yes, we're in church and we're a family church and we're helping to raise each other, that kind of thing, I got my confidence from my mum. My mum will tell me, she'll look at me and she'll say, you are amazing, you are confident, I am proud of you, you can do it. From when I was young, and she'll tell me the things that she went through with her parents and what she's doing to ensure that she doesn't do that with us, to say that, you know what, even if you don't want to sing, it's fine. But, if you think, I think it'll be really amazing, let me take a video and I'll send it to you, just to gas our heads a little bit, And then a boundary that I had to put in, I hope my dad's not watching, a boundary that I had to put with my dad, because he used to do this thing where if you go and preach somewhere, on the day as we're arriving, Nana, you're going to sing for me, right? Yeah, I had to tell him no. But he didn't understand it, because it would literally, especially Simon Cole baby before. Oh, and a pastor's here now. No. So now my dad knows that if he wants me to do something, hey, are you free this time? Can you be available? Can you come? And then he will come and do it. But I think a lot of our parents expect that, don't have that emotional intelligence to even apply to themselves or their child. And that's what sets the parent back. So you have to learn emotional intelligence, how to apply it to yourself, how to apply it to a child, and then the wider community that you're in.
I'd actually just like to add to something that Nana is saying here. Sometimes we are our parents' coping mechanisms, right? So they deflect to us, because they are feeling a little bit anxious or whatnot. So I think sometimes it's good to also, humanize them as well, and sometimes realize that as much as they're using us as a substitute for certain things that they struggle with, it's because they struggle with the same things, right? I think Misha, and then Auntie Nana as well. Yep, okay.
Just something to add to what Regina said. Regina. I was actually going to mention what she said in terms of actually trying to figure out what everybody's talent is. Some people's talent may be working behind closed doors, people in the media room doing things on the computer rather than standing up here and giving a word. Like some people, God has given certain talents to certain people in order to, minister to other people, whether it be through the piano, whether it be through standing up there and giving a public speech, whether it be through figuring out the wires upstairs to make sure we can all hear each other. Do you understand? Like, I feel like God has given everybody a unique talent in which we can all minister to each other. And so telling somebody who is, you know, more talented in doing something upstairs or doing something behind the scenes rather than in front of everybody, giving something to them, kind of forcing something upon them in which they're not used to doing, I think that's what we, again, I think everybody has mentioned, some people have mentioned it here, but I think something we do need to change. I think it's something that if we see, the first step is getting to know the person, getting to know all of us, and like Nana said, we can't do that with everybody, but it's just knowing how to approach everybody and using the emotional intelligence that we should now, trying to, as we're all learning, try to cultivate to be able to, you know, communicate with other people, whether it be through the younger lot. You know, now with the younger lot, even though COVID has taken a lot of time from all of us to be able to socialize with them, now with the younger youth, it's now taking that time. Now we're in church to be like, okay, like, what do you guys do? What do you guys like what you're interested in? What do you study at university? Actually trying to understand who they are, and then being able to know that, okay, I know that, let's say, Emmanuel Dankwa is really artistic. When we were doing youth things, he was doing a lot of posters and stuff. I know that someone like Ifyan Team, she's really outspoken, so she can stand up here and present stuff. So I think it's, again, knowing, especially when it comes to the younger lot, exactly, like, being able in that kind of, in that sort of setting where it's like, if we're talking about the younger lot, the youth, getting to really know them as their persons and knowing who they are and what they can do and how they can minister on to everybody. Because I think when we speak of social anxiety, obviously it's in the social setting, and I think when we're speaking, it's only kind of like applicable to like when we're doing public speeches or, you know, sermons and stuff. But I think it's just trying to appreciate everybody and what they can do. It's not just, you know, whether they can stand up there and, you know, give a sermon, whether they can stand up there and sing. It's appreciating what they can do. If they can't do that, then fine. Just try and appreciate them and what they can do. And in the same breath, I also do feel like to encourage us young ones, or us younger adults, I feel like we do need to also step out of our comfort zones. When was it? I think during COVID, I was asked to do Sabbath school. I was like, huh? Like, how do you even teach Sabbath school? And I've always seen it as something like the elders do, or like, you know, the older ones do, older people do. And it wasn't even like PowerPoint or Prime. It was the older, like the actual adult Sabbath school and Casa. And even when I think of adult Sabbath school, I think of it in Tree. I was even confused. I was like, hey, asking me to do it. But I think even doing that during COVID, it even set me off, like, it helped my Christian faith, because it actually helps me understand how to study the Bible and helps me understand that Sabbath school is actually something we can use as a form of Bible study in ourselves in a day-to-day life. And when I did it, I was like, oh my days, I actually really enjoyed this. Like, I actually really enjoy learning about, you know, this particular topic and knowing the different verses that come. I really enjoy doing this, and I think it's just a matter of just stepping into the unknown. And I think obviously everybody's on their own journey, but as I'm getting older, I'm realizing that the more you realize that God is with you in every step of the way, even if like you're stepping out and it's looking dark, just know that God is going to be the light going forward. And so, Charlie, and just know that God is going to be the light stepping forward. Like, I think it's just a matter of believing in yourself. And I'm not just saying this in terms of like, obviously I know this is towards social anxiety, but even in anxiety in general, because I think anxiety, you have anxiety before you have social anxiety, right? And so I think just to tackle the root issue of anxiety, just know that whatever you do, as long as you commit yourself to God, like, forget what anybody else can say, because as long as God has told me I can do this, as long as God has said that, even though I can't speak and I'm going to do this public speech, God has qualified me already. Like, nobody else can qualify me. Nobody can give me a certificate to say that you're good at this or you're good at that. Only God can tell me, Misha, you're ready for this, so do it. And so as long as you have that self-conviction, you have that Holy Spirit in you telling you you can do this, it's obviously, I'm not saying it's easy, and it's gonna take time to obviously learn and also go on that journey, but it's just a matter of stepping out in faith. I think that's what it is. Stepping out in faith and doing it. There was one time we're doing youth choir, and Nana said, Misha, you're doing the solo. I was like, huh? Again, there's so many moments in my life I say huh before I come up there and do this. But you end up doing it afterwards. Again, and like Gillian said, it's the encouragement you get afterwards. Oh, it was really good. I was like, oh my days. I was so nervous before stepping on there, but after I come back, hearing the feedback, it was actually really good. And so there's not much to worry about, because after you do it, you realize, okay, no, the people's opinions that I was worrying about, they're actually like quite encouraging. So everybody, this is not even just the parents, all of us, like even our peers, when we're doing something up there, we should just try and encourage each other, say what you did, well, you sang really nicely, the speech was really good, you hit on good topics. And if we're going to try and criticize, we just do it constructively. We do it in a way that is accommodating to the person. We do it in a way that the person, you're not saying the negative only, but you're focusing on the positive and then moving into how we can do better, not just the negative, but how we can do better. And so, yeah, that's what I have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that contribution. I think Auntie Amelia had her hand up. Auntie Nahima as well. But let's go to Auntie Amelia, and then we'll come back to Elder at the back as well.
Thank you. I think, Zé, we just have to have this mindset of before someone tells you something, they have some love for you. And we should, I know, we say people criticize, because we are human beings, it wasn't meant to criticize, but it's how, communication is very complex. It's how you receive the message at the time. And let's have the mindset to say, answer no bibe can be for you. No. The person loves you. The person, hopefully, that's my thinking. That's what I think that's what I have lived with. Because I believe, sir, before someone comes to me and says, oh, I thought I say no, nipa no dreaming. That's what helps me. I can give you a little example for my son. He just got up. I'm sure he's giving me the permission. He did a coordination today. I'm sure it says, Mina Mekaya Konye. You've been deflecting like you've been doing. But didn't he do so well today? Now, how was he going to do it if he didn't try it? And with all anxiety, all forms of anxiety, the therapy would be gradual exposure, graded exposure. You do it gradually. Because we are not measuring it. But the only way to conquer any sort of anxiety is gradually exposing yourself to it. And see, sometimes it's the person behind you who will see that talent that you don't see. I take myself as an example. Mr. Ejuma, you know how I am. I'm a very shy person. I'm at the back. I'm comfortable with what I do. Very competent with what I do. But I'm not the one that you hear in meetings. They were offering me a lot of leadership positions. Me, no, that's not for me. I'm happy where I am. And it took one of my managers to say, do you know you'll be one of the best managers? Me, manager. No, not for me. I ran till one point. I had to do it. But then it exposed me to other things. And no who say this thing, but and you are afraid, as you're saying, you're scared to do it. But that little push, so I can do this, and then you do, and you go. So say obese, maybe you can do this, and that's what expose you to do something. I'm sure if Kojo is asked to do coordination next week, he's not going to be worried about it. He could, because he can see how he did it. Because I was thinking, how is it? He did it perfectly. And see, kakra, we get ourselves exposed to our fears, and then we can conquer them. Just like you said, we'll all be different. I'm not going to be like the one and only. Never. We're not going to be the same. But I'm my own person. So, but we are all there. We complement each other. And so let's accept that. Different people, but we can challenge ourselves. We can stretch ourselves. Let's not stay there. Because we can do better. And if someone suggests it or puts you in a situation to challenge you a little bit, that's what the therapist will do and get money from you, to be honest. That's what they will do. Until the church will do it for you for free. Until we are building you up for it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Auntie Amelia. I think before we move on to the next contribution, I think one thing I really want to add to what Auntie Amelia said is that we are hoping that people are talking to us from a place of love. And I think that's really important, right? As a church family, I think we have to make that a priority, right? To look for and care after people from a place of love, right? If people can't feel that, they're not going to trust that the intentions we have for them, the things we're speaking to them from, is from a good place, right? If someone's experience has always been very negative, from everything you've ever said to them, that trust that, what you're saying is come from a place of love is not there. I think we can all hope that that's the case, but I just want to point out sometimes that doesn't feel like that's always the case, right? And I think as a church family, it's very important that we make sure that our environment, right, that we're all growing together in the church family is supportive, is an encouraging environment, that we can share these type of encouragements and push people to be able to do things that they would otherwise struggle with. I think Pia had a contribution.
I don't want to disagree with the fact that some people are naturally outspoken and they speak really well. But what I've also come to realize is that as you keep doing something, you become better at it. My first lecturing was at the University of East London. This was a very huge class. So you go to the lecture hall and you know how it's arranged up there, and you will be standing there, and it's so scary. Just look at one person in front of you talking to you. It's not comfortable. And you've got over 200, 300 people staring at you intently with the view to understand what you are telling them. So it is frightening. But as you keep doing it, you build that confidence. Don't think that when lecturers come to their class, they feel so comfortable. They are not. And pastors are not that comfortable. They all have fears within them. But one thing I've realized is that when you start speaking, it's very scary at the start. But then after some time, you start to become confident. And then all those fears start going away. Sometimes your heart starts pumping very fast initially. And then with time, you settle down. Lecturers, politicians, doctors, and people who speak in public, they all have those things going through their tummies. Now, if you think about politicians, somebody like Obama, they say he speaks really well. But some of these people start from university. They start practicing politics from university. They start writing for politicians. And so they would have done these things for years before they come to stand in front of public. So it is the fact that once you start doing something, you become better at it. And so when you say they want me to do something and I don't want to do it, then the question is, how can you be better at it? You can only be better when you start practicing. But that also leads to the second point. The comments you make about people affect them a lot, no matter whether they are kids or whether they are adults. As lecturers, we are trained to know how to give comments. I remember there was one time one lecturer said, when I start reading your report, he used a term to say that, like, it breaks my heart to read your report because it's like there's no substance in what you've written. Just compare that to a lecturer who said, oh, your report was good in this area and in that area, but you could have improved it by including this and that. When the student reads this feedback, they understand that you want them to improve upon whatever they've done. Now, if you have your children and you don't know how to talk to them, how to encourage them, then you dampen their spirit. You make them believe that they are not worth anything. They cannot be amount to anything. And they build up this kind of fear within them. And so the way we speak to people is very important, even if they are adults. And so, just as everyone has said, if you don't have anything encouraging, please keep quiet. Don't talk to the person. But if you are going to talk to them, try to edify them. Try to nourish them. Try to nurture them and let them know that they've done well, but then maybe there are other things they can do to improve upon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think we're going to take short contributions. I have Sasha at the back, so I'm going to go to Sasha first and then come back.
I had a mic. Can I speak there?
Okay, and then we'll go to Sasha and come back to Apostle.
I'll just make a couple of comments. My first one is saying that is attributed to Winston Churchill. He said, when you're 20, you care so much about what other people think about you. Then when you're 40, you say, oh, I don't care what people think about me. I'm going to do it anyway. Then you get to 60 and you realize, actually, nobody thought about you. So you wasted all your life wondering what people thought about you. So just like the Nike advert says, just do it. Don't worry about what people will think about you. Think about what you want to do. And remember, this church is your church. What you put in it is what you get out of it. Nobody is going to make it for you. You would build it up yourself. When I was young, I read a book, Dale Carnegie, How to Make Friends and Influence People. And it helped me a lot. And when I was like 20, I was leading the nurse in my church. We used to go out and sell things. You do it out of fear. It's not, when the pastors come here, they are also afraid. Everybody is on social anxiety here. I'm telling you, like Shakespeare says, the whole world is a stage, and we are all mere players. Nobody is a better player than you. We all get in our entrances at various places. We got on our exits. We just get on the stage and play our part. So it's your turn to play your part. Just do it.
Wonderful, thank you.
I think everyone's kind of said what I thought of. Sorry, Uncle Kobia. I want to just add on to like a bit of everything. In terms of social, because yeah, I definitely have that, and I feel like maybe people will be like, oh, why would you have that? Because when I was younger, I was always up on the pulpit, doing preachings, doing speakings, even like into my adulthood, doing like, you know, coordination or little presentations here and there. So that now when people ask me, I say no, because I feel like as I got older, the anxiety got worse. And sometimes I don't think people realize that it's not just in your mind, sometimes it plays on physically as well. So like Uncle Dr. Arhin said, sometimes you have palpitations, you get sweats, you start overthinking, you start shaking, you know, all the little things. Sometimes if you've been told before, insomnia, you can't sleep because you're thinking and stressing over it. So I think in terms of coping with it, I don't think, like my brother Sean, I don't think I cope like that with it. I deflect most of the time. But being in the new role that I am in at work, I pushed myself to go into it because I didn't really like to teach, I would say. Not that I didn't like it, but I felt that I was criticizing myself a lot. Like I didn't know if I was right, and I didn't want to teach anyone the wrong thing, and I wasn't sure, but I was like, let me go into this role and push myself into the deep end and see if I can swim. If I swim, I swim. If I sink, well, God help me. Because my mum always told me, Sasha, you can teach, you know, you're really good, you should go. Okay, Mum, I've heard you. So, yeah, so I think in terms of going back to what Misha said, as we're older, like, we have to push ourselves into doing things that we might feel uncomfortable with. And even though we might do things 500 times, the social anxiety will probably never get better. It might always be there. And I feel like it's still there, even now talking right now, my hands are shaking. But because this is a family, and I think what we need to do is build a safe place for everyone and each individual person here. The safer we feel in an environment and the safer we feel in a place, the better the anxiety will become, I'm hoping. And I feel like that's the same in terms of what Nana was saying, in terms of depending on the environment you're in is what type of personality you'll get out of us. So yeah, I think in terms of coping with it, there's only so much we can do to cope with it because it will always be there. But I think what we need to do as a community is build a place, a safe place where people feel comfortable to make mistakes, feel comfortable enough to be able to be like, oh no, I did this wrong, and tell the truth and be honest with themselves and with others. So yeah, that's my contribution to it all.
Wonderful.
Oh, and
Thank
also
you so
lead by example, because I feel like, Mum, if you give me permission to say it, give me permission to say, but I feel like the reason why I probably have social anxiety is because watching my mom, as amazing as she is, she criticizes herself a lot. She'll be like, oh, did I do this okay? Did I do this okay, girls? And I'll be like, yeah, mom, you did perfect. So also leading by example as well, because I think, not saying that you don't lead by example, mom, by the way, but I think when we're watching you guys and we see how good you guys are and then also see how you may reflect on yourselves, that also makes us think, oh my gosh, like, are we as good enough? Yeah. So also leading by example and being role models and learning how to cope together. Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a final contribution.
We got just a couple, because people are screwing me, Emmanuel, so I don't want to get beaten up. I already got social anxiety.
We can't take anymore. But
I'm going to come to Auntie Eunice,
Apostle
and then
first. Hey.
Uncle Tim, then
No.
Mr. over there.
We can't do two more.
2 minutes, 2 minutes.
Yeah, next time, because there's actually a lot of topics I wanted to get into further about.
Okay, yeah. Mine is short. Mine is not as long as...
Next time, Apostle one for Mike and my own.
I said I'll take this opportunity to apologize to my daughter, Solace. You know, when they started singing at a very young age, from 5, 6, those who were here then, you will remember, 6, 7, 8, and I remember on sometimes Friday evening or Sabbath morning, they will ask me, Mommy, are we singing today? And I'll either say yes or no. So, you know, and then it got to a point when you ask them to sing, and I realized that, no, it's not the same. They're growing up, like everybody has said. The social anxiety, it rather multiplies as they grow. When they were young, they didn't care. They would go and sing, whether it turns out well or not. Amen. But then I realized so one day, I mean, not too long ago, maybe about 3-4 months ago, Solace asked me, so Mommy, when you are going to preach, don't you feel any way, any kind, you know? I said, yes, I always have butterflies in my tummy. But when I start, then, you know, I get the confidence to carry on. She said, yes, Mom, that's how I feel. Even though you think I've got the voice and I can sing, but I don't want to be singing. So it got to a point when people come to me to ask me or tell me to tell Solace and Christopher to sing. I said, please, take their numbers, call them yourself, because I know how, you do it yourself. Tell them to sing. So I'm so sorry, I will say. But yes, everybody has got social anxiety. And again, we are talking about gifts. Where is Akwesi? If Akwesi will bear me out. Before Akwesi became an interpreter, but did you go to any school? Did you go for any training? No. If you remember, Dr. Bonsu, or the same, something Bonsu. Pastor Sai Bonsu, yeah. We were having a revival at Berkeley. Yeah, and you know that time I was doing interpretation. And I was sitting down quietly, minding my own business. I wasn't going. Then Akwesi came to me. He was then with the, a friend said, personal ministries. So he came to me, Ma, Pacho, a champion, I'm tired, I'm not going. So, oh, Ma, I said, but you can do it, you go. Where's Akwesi? Today, when you're talking about interpreters, he was forced into the corner. There was nothing he could do. So he just had to go and do it. And from that day, Akwesi just flew. Now he interprets. I don't know how he does it. What's a brofuna broso motichi, you know so. But if that opportunity hadn't come, Akwesi would sit down and he wouldn't realize that he had that gift. So sometimes we will push you into a corner. I'm talking to young people now. You'll be pushed into a corner. Just pray to God. Help me. I've been asked to do this. Just help me. Let me do it. Now, I mean,
just gonna quickly. Sir, you've had your hand up for so long.
Oh, really? Oh, thank you. I'm actually anxious now. When I did ask you, I said to myself, what have you done? But I feel you, the gentleman over there. I used to deflect a lot. I was a master at that. But at my church, people were kind. And from that, stuff that was in me was brought out. So visual communications, photography, graphic design. And I've made money on the side with that. It's taking me to Europe. It's taking me to the Dorchester, the Savoy. But I learned it all in church. And one thing I want to say is this. My daddy never encouraged me, so perhaps that's where the deflection came about. Encourage people, say kind words, especially the young people. When they go up there and they talk, it's a big deal. Here's a coping mechanism. When you go up there, pick on one person that you like in the audience and talk to them. And you would see that it'll become better and better.
Thank you so much.
Amen. So MC needs to the mic. I'm getting social anxiety here. Now, Becca, 3 short stories, and then we'll tie it together. Yeah, very short one. The first one, the bumblebee. See any bumblebee? Now, 1930s, they did a research and it says that there's no way the bumblebee can fly aerodynamically because the weight of the body is so massive compared to the size of the wings. Bumblebee has no idea about some mass any science no more. Just flaps its wings on all chrono. So sometimes you look at all the things around you and it means you can't do it technically, but just put yourself to it. Now, when you the child didn't know about walking but it doesn't care. Now, when you see, remember example, when you see ABR, maybe a design be, maybe men by 1 hour, 2 hours. Now, don't look at it and then feel intimidated because it is something I've done for about 20 years. When I look at your design, I look at you and where you are at your design and I say you've done very well. But it doesn't look nice. It's not about it being nice. It's about where you started, where you are, and what you've shown me. Now, if I compare that to 10 years, I tell you, be an amazing designer. So don't let your standard be, it's good to compare, but compare, make it relative to your journey. And yes, sir, you become weary and think you are no good. Because you're looking at doctor, why you're in the practice for about 20-something years. Now, when we come back, I ask from how can I do this course? You start from somewhere, one step at a time, and then you can also make it. Second one, maybe this will be about the 5th year going. Come meeting, what do you say? Okay, I didn't do computer science, I didn't do programming, but my app to manage registration for come meeting. And it's been running for 5 years. I believe there are people within who've done computer science, who've done programming, who've done software. They've not done it. I did graphic design and I expanded upon myself and I've done it. Bumblebee, I'm flapping my wings. Talk about all the codes. I don't care. I will do it. And that is me. And sometimes maybe I want them to say, well, I don't put any limit. Who cares? Remember example, when I joined Southeast, Broccoli, not Mama Santuani, Elder Kobnajima, they were the one managing the church website. I say, I'll do it. May catch people who want to join say, use the church website as your practice. Yet now say the church is very forgiving, they will not do anything to you. Practice with the church website. And then they collapse it. The church is very forgiving. Use that to practice and then you better your skill. Oh, a camera, fabric with your pictures. But with time, everything gets well. What I'm saying is, if you look at where you are, compare somebody who's up there, you get the anxiety. Take yourself as a bumblebee, flap your wings and go. Dust yourself and carry on.
Thank you so much. And I think Uncle Kobe has said a very good thing. The church is a very forgiving place, or at least it should be. So we can expand here. Please, 2 more contributions per time. There's actually a lot more we want to do, but next week we can even come and carry on. See, Carmel and then Clemens, and then you have to pump. Yeah, not next week, the week before. After.
So the point I wanted to make, I wanted to add on what Misha said. I think that as young people, we are very comfortable in our own position. Being comfortable can be very dangerous because you don't want to change. You don't see anything wrong in what you're doing. You're just, I don't want to do it, so me okay where I am. But I feel like, to what point do we get, we say, I actually want to change? Because you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped. If I say, okay, I don't know, I don't want to go to church for the next 5 years. My parents cannot force me to come to church for the next 5 years. But as a person within you, don't you want change? Like as a young person or within the church, outside, wherever we are, don't you, like I get it, anxiety can be in there, but to what extent do you get say, I actually want to change and I want to conquer this anxiety that I have going on? So it's like, that's just a question I want to ask everyone, as young people know. To what point do we get, say, I actually want to do this for myself? You're not even doing it for someone else, but you want to win that battle. So what are you doing to actually get out of that comfortability? That's my point.
Thank you. Mr. Clement, and then last one, then we'll do a summary, then we ask Pastor to pray for us to end everything.
One thing I'm going to say is, I think growing up in church, or specifically being a Seventh-day Adventist as a young guy, we've got an advantage because we do have that platform of being able to, let's say, do presentation and talk in the churches. No, it does prepare us in so many ways at our workplace. I remember my first presentation I did at work, I was presenting to the directors. And when I finished, my manager asked me, like, how did you do it? Have you done it before? And I'm like, nah, aside, let's say, presenting some stuff at uni, I've never done this. But I kind of feel like, because at church, sometimes I stand in front of 200 people and talk to them, no? I saw like, maybe this is a small crowd, even though they've got big titles, no? I can do it. So what I want to tell we, the younger ones, they say, whatever our anxiety are, no, we can control it. We are, as Elder Kobe has said, we've got a place that no one is going to judge us, no one is going to mark us. So we should use the church as a place to correct ourselves. So like when we go into the world now, we can be good over there. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't need a camera because I'm extremely nervous. Don't look, please. That's how bad it can be. I only spoke as well because Ayuba spoke. I wanted to put my hand up a long time ago. I've suffered with anxiety for a very long time, and I watch people like this who just do it so well. I wanted to say a lot of things. I remember bringing this one when... Oh, please. No,
can we take the camera off her, please?
Thank you. Thank you. I remember bringing this one to your Bible reading and yes, and I've made it my duty as a parent, because I didn't do it with my two older ones, to push him as much as I can from a very young age, as you know, up there, especially in church. Because for me, I wasn't up there in church. I was adopted by a really special elder who allowed me to help him do treasury work when my mum was on choir practice, and allowed me to do different things behind the scenes, like the lady said at the back. And I was really touched by what she said, because we don't always see the qualities and the brilliance of some of our young people, and children even, because they're not up there. We have to look at, or try to investigate, our children's gifts or passions and nurture them, because they're not all going to be up there. I'm a part of the praise team for Kennington, and we were asked last minute to come and do the closing item. I'm the only one that came, and as I came in, somebody said, "So are you going to do it?" And I was like, "Don't you dare." But this is the thing. I love to be a part of the praise team because I feel safe at Kennington doing it. Stepping outside, if I was a part of them, maybe I would. Or a choir, maybe. But I love this conversation. I work with young offenders who, many of them have social anxiety, and it starts from a longer time, but they're never given an opportunity to explore it, to speak about it, or to seek help with it. So many of our young people and adults in church who are not saying anything, who are not doing much, and I wasn't going to say anything because it's eating me. I needed to. I'm ecstatic to be in an audience, a congregation where we're talking about these things, but it is, how do we move forward? How do we help support those who do have it? The young lady that sang, when I came in, you were singing, and I thought, I must come and say, something to you, because you did so well. I was blessed as I walked in, but you would never know that if I didn't, I've got an opportunity to say that. And I try to do that with young people, because we didn't always have that when I was growing up. One last one. I remember singing with the Brixton Youth Choir, and the leader obviously could hear me. I'm not saying I can sing, I do sing, but... You can sing. Thank you. But at a very young... Who said very well? Thank you. Young age, maybe I was about 10 or 12, and she put me on a solo, and I was petrified. And I remember singing, but almost turning my head and doing what I'm trying to do now. No attention, please. At the end of it, I got £5, I got £1, and I was rich at the end of the night. And I thought, I'm going to do this again. The next week I was at church, they were saying, okay, are you going to? I said, no. Let me stay behind the scenes. But I was congratulated. I was told, well done. We do need to say well done. We need to, even if we find a fault with young people, sometimes don't say anything. Keep it. Because that one thing might be the only thing they remember compared to what you have said that was really all the good things that people can say, might say won't be remembered because of that one thing. And I think that's what's happened to me over the years. I've heard so many good things, but if I hear the one negative, not that you shouldn't be told, or maybe give it to somebody who can say it, but I heard maybe one or two things about what I might have worn or what I might have, how I might have stood, whatever it, or doing something outside of church, and that's what I heard. The one thing I will keep going on about is well done for these conversations and doing these things in these settings, but don't let's walk away from it without doing the nurturing and doing the work. There are some people who are suffering extremely with anxiety, depression, all sorts of things. Keep talking about them in church, but let's find ways to actually do something about them. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sister, for that contribution. We'll have a one-sentence contribution to end from Sister Phyllis, and then we'll get Pastor to pray for us.
Thank you so very much. So we've been talking about coping mechanisms and knowing our strengths. And one thing I also plead with us is, as SDA Church, we've got so many departments. It's probably one of the churches that you find so many departments. Let's then volunteer ourselves into the departments we feel comfortable, then slowly growing ourselves. If we sit back, someone calls you and you'll be a problem, join a department and let's work together. Amen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Church, for helping us engage in this conversation. As I think we all see, there's so much more room to expand further. I think someone mentioned how maybe what someone says about what you dress to church affects you and things like that, right? And a few other points I wanted to get into, but I think time is far spent. I won't summarize what we've been discussing, actually. I think everybody else's contributions has done that beyond measure. So I will give it to Pastor to pray for us to consecrate this conversation. I think it's a very important conversation we're having, right? And it's something that we need to continue to have and encourage people, right? As a church, we need to be a supportive environment so that we can all be the fertile seeds that can grow. Thank you all so much.
I'm sure this is one of the best programs we've ever had in the church. Very good one, so keep it up. Pastors also suffer social anxiety. But when you are coming to a new church and you watch the previous pastor's send off,